today, you know what? I've noticed when I read through the Bible, there's this strange thing that happens that still happens today. Like, there was a lot of things that Jesus plainly said that even the people who were close with him, the disciples, they just didn't get it. And you think we're still there today a little bit? I mean, you can see it by the division in our society. You can see it by the stunt speeches on one side or the other, the fors and the against. And I just have this kind of crazy notion, if you'll go on this journey with me today, that Jesus is actually, when he gave his life, it was literally, really and truly for every single person, that whosoever calls on him shall be saved. Do you believe that? You know, I understand, yes, there is a repentance and there is a turning to him, but hey, for any who will, he says, come. So we're going to kind of take that journey together, and I want to take it down the journey of a word, if I can. Any Sesame Street fans in the house? Anybody ever watch Sesame Street? It used to be Sesame Street back in the day, was sponsored by the letter or the number A today, so everything built off of that. We're going to sponsor today off a word, and the word is called faith-filled. Everybody say faith-filled. In fact, you can high-five your neighbor and say, I'm more faith-filled sitting beside you. And I don't know how you want to interpret that. It could get really weird. But anyway, you know, faith-filled is an idea. Faith-filled is part of a value system that, you know, what we try to teach people around here, and we try to embrace not just individually but corporately as a church. And it goes behind this vision statement that we have. And the vision that we say it a lot, we write it on stuff, we put it in videos, we put it on, it's not on these cards, we put it on a whole lot of stuff, put it on websites, put it everywhere that we can. We try to work it in there because we want it to be a unified understanding that we are radically all about the uncommitted, the undecided, and the unchurched, and leading them to become passionate followers of Jesus Christ. That's wherever we go, within church, within the invitation here, within our homes, wherever we may be. But how many of you realize, you know what, you probably have been around things, companies that say, or even schools, you know, will come up with their own little vision statements. And vision statements is kind of a thing that people have had for a long time, but it really doesn't mean anything if there's not some action or particularly a value system behind it. Think of vision and values like this. Vision is if you like to go somewhere, for instance, you say, man, I want to go to Sacramento, California. How to get there? You pull out your phone. If you're maybe you're in rebellion, you still got an atlas. I saw somebody not long ago holding one on their wheel going down the road. It was made me a little nervous. I mean, I'm okay with seeing you texting and driving, but looking at a whole map kind of took me off guard. But don't text and drive, by the way. It's not safe. I'm just saying I feel comfortable getting out of your way in a hurry. But anyway, so if you punch in the numbers in your phone or what have you, or look up on your computer and say, I'm going to Sacramento. It's going to show this blue line going across the United States to there. Going to tell you it's going to be like 2,200 miles. It's going to take you 28 to 30 hours, depending on what time of day you leave. And what it is, that's your roadmap. That roadmap is your value. Vision is your destination, okay? So we got a vision statement that says to reach the uncommitted, the undecided, and the unchurched, lead them to become passionate followers of Jesus Christ. That came out real country. But that is our vision. But vision means nothing without a value and without a set of values particularly. Values help you know when to say yes, and values help you know when to say no. Values is, in this instance, is faith-filled. Faith-filled. Do you realize there's two examples in the Bible of things that amazed Jesus? We're going to just kind of have a class today and really grow. Is that good? I think our world will be better because we're together today. I really believe that. We've ministered to a lot of emotion. We talk a lot of inspiration a lot of time. But can we just kind of like have a family powwow today? Can we do that? Come together? So Jesus was amazed at two things in the Word of God. Number one, he was amazed at great faith, and he was amazed at lack of faith. And so we've identified faith-filled like this. Let's say faith-filled, dash. Jesus was amazed at great faith and lack of faith. We choose to be the first. How many of you believe? I want to be the kind of people that when Jesus, not because of any kind of pat on the back, but you know what, that he looks and he says, there's the people that, wow, look at their faith. And says, truly as you have asked, you know, it is given. He says great faith. But the complexity of our day, though, is this. What does faith-filled look like? I got faith. You got faith. I believe. You believe. I got I got lots of faith. Man, I have faith for all kinds of stuff. What does faith really look like, though? I mean, does faith look like a 10-minute daily devotion of Bible reading every day? Or break open and say, well, yeah, I got up and got my 10 minutes in. And is that faith? Is maybe being faith-filled, is that like I see someone in need and I just give them my home and I go live on the streets and trust that God's going to work it all out? Is that faith-filled? Is that radical? Pretty radical. Is faith, you know what? Is it tithing? Is it serving? Is faith a prayer that heals the sick? Or is faith-filled having endurance through difficulty, still relying on God as the extreme support and has the best of it all? Is being faith-filled starting off with a nicotine patch or with vape? Or is faith-filled cold turkey? Is faith-filled, what I'm saying, is it seen in the progression of a Jesus-focused life? Or is faith-filled seen in the perfection? In the progression or the perfection? And we could open this up with a lot of different directions, but really, it appears that from the days of Jesus on earth till today, faith-filled has largely been explained in an individual kind of way. But today I'd like to kind of open it up and say, you know what? What if we took it in the way that Jesus explains so often, in a community-oriented way? Community. Well, community is like this. You know what? You may have $5, and I got $5, and somebody else has $5. You know what? Alone, we've not got a whole lot. None of us can go to the store, go to get fast food combo. I mean, we're just out. But together, we can do a lot. Together, we can meet somebody's need. Together, it can be somebody that's down and they got a job, they only had a car. We could put our fives together and we could get somebody a car. We can do things when we work together. Community is like that. And so community, when we pull our resources together, so you know what also? When we come together with the same heart, there's a lot more that we can do together. This is why we push Dream Team so big and Next Step so big. Man, we want everybody to come together. And you know what? We want everybody serving with the same mission and the same heart and the same passion. And everybody looking in the eyes the same way of like, man, what does Jesus want to do in this person today? I want to bring that. Can you imagine as we come with a unified heart how much more we can do together? Think about your home, how much better it is when there's agreement and not an argument. Is faith-filled? Is it really a reflection of being faith-filled with the hope and the rescue of Jesus for the entire world? When I primarily embrace those who look like me, think like me, talk like me, see like me, act like me, like me. My early days of Christianity, the early days of being saved, I thought I knew it all. You got any know-it-alls in the house? Somebody's nudging you, I promise. Typically, we don't confess it, so I'm just trying to help you. But I was pretty much a know-it-all. And so part of it was my know-it-all. We would do things. There was youth groups. Us and another church would do a lot of things together. And it didn't happen very often. Our youth group, their youth group, me, their youth pastor, we got along great. It was awesome. Did a lot of stuff together. But their pastor was a whole other story. It was like every time we got around, there was a competition. He saw things. He interpreted some scriptures one way. I interpreted them a little bit another. We agreed on Jesus, but we disagreed on a whole lot of other stuff right after that. And so what would happen, the few times I remember that he got up to speak at a youth gathering, kind of like they had here Friday night, he kind of used it for his target practice, so to speak, to shoot at me. And to point out, I know there are some people that would say, but that's just crazy, and would drill down at me, and I felt it, and that's okay, because when the tables turned, I did the same thing to him. Like, I got to show people what's right. I got to get rid of this false stuff. I got to point it out. Arrogant, man. So arrogant. So cocky. Is faith-filled, is it, though we can argue, could have memorized so many scriptures, but is faith-filled really faith-filled as Jesus would desire when we use it to still only defend and hold close that are just like us? Is faith-filled community more about reflecting the things that have influenced, let me say it like this, our ideology And even our theology, or is faith-filled more about reflecting the heart and the message of Jesus? I would say it'd be the latter, wouldn't you? Is it okay if I open up a bit more? Because I promise by the time we get to the end, I'm going to make some people uneasy. Maybe somebody get mad at somebody. Maybe you'll be like, Danny, has he lost his mind? I don't really know what he's saying. I'm just going to say for the rest of today, what I'm saying is just what I'm saying. And don't try to, it's not past what I'm saying. It's just only what I'm saying. So, but here's what I'm saying. If we truly believe that God has a vision to fulfill, then we also must embrace that, you know what, his design is that we do it together. His design is that there's a Jesus-focused unity. And I literally believe, I need to set this up, I literally believe that the church is the single greatest organization on the planet. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a part of one and because I depend on a paycheck from one. I literally believe it because, you know what, it is designed to be the greatest community about Jesus Christ. To open this up, have you ever worked somewhere that you were thankful for the money, but you really didn't like the workplace or the people or the boss at all? Yeah, what happened? What happened? It was great at providing a need, but it was horrible at giving any kind of community. And you've probably been on the other end of the places, you know what? It may not pay as much, but man, love to be there. It's like we're family, we're together. There's both ends of it. Sometimes, you know what, the church can also be the greatest organization, but the reality is sometimes it's interpreted, the way it's interpreted is not always the greatest community. I don't believe that's true when it's in its right form, but it can be interpreted as the greatest organization, but sometimes it's not noticed for the community that it should be recognized for. The greatest organization, because you know what? There's no other organization that takes as much abuse and keeps giving. There's no other organization, you know what, like the church. You can come in, you can burn down the church. They're going to turn around, they're going to build back up the church and then invite you to be a part of it. That's what the church does. The church is constantly accused of a lot of things. A constant smear campaigns and hypocrisy and one-sidedness and against things. And groups try to smear, but you know, what does the church do? It prays for them and continues to reach out and even serves some water here and there. Builds hospitals, provides humanitarian relief worldwide, establishes recovery centers that none other compare to. Any problem you can think of, the church has something that is prepared to meet that need in some capacity. I remember in a nearby town, a food distribution center, food, supplies, clothing, needs. They would supply needs numerous times throughout the week. It wasn't every day, but it was several days each week. And I've been doing it for I don't know how many years. They still do it. And I can remember I had my contacts, you know. I had my contacts on the inside and my contacts on the outside. And I know from being on the contacts on the inside, they love to give. They love to take in a truck of stuff and disperse it out and meet needs and do things. They loved it. But also, you know what? There are people that come in to receive week after week. And the people that received, you know what? So often I would talk to them on the streets and they're criticizing the ones who gave. But you know what? The next time the doors open, they come back in, they receive from the ones they criticize because the ones they criticize are still giving. That's what the church does. I know of another the church that's been giving for over 20 years has a program and gives out and does big Thanksgiving and Christmas and, as well as all throughout the year. And hundreds of thousands of dollars have been spent over the 20 years. Tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of meals have been served over the years. And literally just a few months ago, tell me they finally did a tally and we're counting up and we're equating everything out. Said, you know, in all of 20 years, only one single person from that we have given to in that ministry actually even comes to the church. And they're okay with that. I'm not going to quit giving because of that. This isn't a cut, but what I'm saying is there's not a more giving organization on the planet. I believe Jesus designed it that way. The church can be rejected for a lifetime. And yet you die, and your family calls you in for a funeral. It's like, so-and-so died, and, you know, we don't have anything to go. You know, hey, can you preach a funeral? Can we have the church this? You know what? The church steps in. And the church says, okay, we're going to alter our schedule. We're going to do everything, even though there was never anything given in all of life. And even though we tried. The church steps up. And there is no greater place. I believe with all my heart because I know the sacrifices the church has made for me while I was running from the church. And I know the sacrifices, I'm saying it's not cheap talk, I know the sacrifices that happen behind the scenes that my family gives because they believe, you know what, and what Jesus is doing through you. However, even though there is no greater organization, sometimes there is a confusing disconnect when it comes to the receiving side. Not long ago, I stopped by a church where a lot of people know me at a place. And so anyway, I stopped by just say it wasn't scheduled, wasn't planned, just kind of out of the blue to say hello to the pastor and just say, hey, just wanted to stop while I was coming by, say hello. I hope you're having a great day. Check you out, you know. And that was about it. But what happened that day, there was a secretary that I'd never seen before, never met before. It was a new person. And I remember I walked in the door, and the doorway's this way, I'm over here, and she's doing this. And she said, yeah, can I help you? I said, yes, ma'am. I said, is Pastor so-and-so in? She went, no, he's out to lunch. Like, okay. And I'm that guy, if you'll give me a chance, I'll just let the awkwardness sit, you know, just like kind of hang out, look at you, you know, like, if you're not going to talk to me, let's at least kind of make some weirdness here. So that way at least the conversation will happen. And so I'm sitting there, and finally I said, well, can I leave a message for him? She went, sure. Reached up, gets a notepad, throws it at me. I kind of that snicker. I was kind of thinking, I was like, this is absolutely crazy thing. But so I wrote the little note, hey, came by to see you, hope you have a great day. Catch up with you next time in town. You know, I'm not mad. The church is great at giving. I think they're really incredible at receiving. I just happen to land on that perfect time. You know, sometimes people land on that perfect time for all of us, don't they? You know, it's easy to point, but sometimes people are pointing at us. We're not even aware of it. It just happens. But at the same time, they're great at giving. At that particular time, it just wasn't so great at receiving, especially receiving the unknown stranger. And at that, my heart broke. My heart broke because I wondered, I wonder if anybody ever comes by me. I wonder if anybody ever comes through Cornerstone Church and they feel the same way, like they were just received and not counted on at all, just looked over poorly, including in this church. Faith-filled, can I say this? It isn't just about giving, it's receiving. James talks about it, says, oh, you got faith. Well, let me see what that faith can do. Faith is receiving, and receiving is a high privilege that we get to be a part of. And if we, the church, are not very intentional about receiving people on purpose continuously, you know what? People continuously walk in, and people continuously walk out. And that breaks my heart. I think it breaks the heart of Jesus as well. Matthew 16:18, Jesus said this. He says, you know what? I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. And I think that's pretty awesome. And you know what? You say, well, why do things continue all these years? And why does it continue to go ahead? And why can't it be taken out? And why does it keep giving? Because hell can't even take it over. But on the flip side, here's the awesome part. You know what? It's the gates of hell. If hell cannot prevail against the church, you know what the church is? The church is the people. So Jesus is saying, you know what? I will build my people who are my church, and hell will not prevail against my people. I love that. It's why the church continues. It's why things go on, because hell can't defeat it. It doesn't matter what comes against it. But so what is the answer to sometimes the big hurdle in the confusion of how a church is received in the world? And the church is designed by God to not just be radically giving, but a faith-filled receiving community. Giving is easy. It's write the check, break out the cash, send it, and it's gone, right? Don't know where it went, don't know what happened, you know, don't know the missionary's name, what have you. I'm being a little facetious here, but you know, you get the point. So much of what we give, you know, it could be the guy at the gas pump, like, yeah, here's a couple of quarters, man. But you know, giving is easy. It just lets it go. But receiving is a whole other ball game. Because receiving we have to be involved in. Receiving is quite different. I believe the testimony of giving today is pretty obvious. But there is a message of receiving that isn't known so well all the time. And it has been displayed sometimes even confusingly. Think of it like this. Giving is an organizational trait. But if giving is an organizational trait, then receiving is designed to be a community quality. Receiving, if not done by all, will be misinterpreted just by a few. So sometimes the church is the greatest giving organization, but the reality is sometimes we're misinterpreted on the community side, on the receiving. And faith-filled receiving is all about people and community. Receiving is tricky, though, because you see, receiving is something we can applaud ourselves for so well and not realize how bad we fell at. Have you ever had somebody tell you after the fact how much you hurt them and you just like are completely sideswiped? You had no idea. You know, when the person says, I almost ran you off the road and you wouldn't even wave at me. Like, I was texting, I didn't know. Not advocating or making a joke about somebody's poor driving. But anyway, receiving is tricky. Receiving, when I think about it, I remember a couple of years ago, we were having a dream team meeting right here. We had a table lined from here all the way to the back, had people all around it, and it was a great meeting, and wasn't enough people to sit at the table, so it was kind of spread out in chairs and everything sprinkled. And dream team meetings, if you're a part of the dream team, you know this. If you're not, I want to invite you to be on one by going through next steps next month. But dream team is, man, they're rah-rah meetings. They're like, yeah, anything can happen, you know. Dream team meetings are like, you know what, hey, we're going to drop letters out of a helicopter on City Hall, and 1,500 people are going to find Jesus. It's going to be awesome because it's going to be a ball tournament. And everybody's like, yeah! You know, that's the dream team meeting. Everybody, anything goes, you know. It's just like anything. But this particular dream team, so what we're doing, we're celebrating things that have happened and celebrating things that God has done, celebrating baptisms, salvations, and celebrating teams that are growing, and really felt pretty good. And then there was the lady who broke all of our hearts. And because, see, we had made some significant, radical changes in the church. We eliminated Sunday school. We opened children's church, which the kids have been greatly appreciative of, as well as the parents, and to give Jesus on everybody's level at the same time. And part of that, and we saw this lady that come in, and she was striving, struggling. She come in about 6 months later. She was striving, struggling. Coming about 6 months later, I mean, how many of you realize sometimes parenting is not the easiest thing you ever chose to do? Okay, and so it's like, you know, we got to change things around because I never want to see this person or anybody else that looks similar come and cycle through because they're alone. So we did, and sure enough, she cycled back. Things went awesome, stayed, never left. Got involved in different parts of the dream team and the ministry. Hardcore doing just incredible. Thought, man, they were killing it. And in that meeting, she opens up and she says, I need to tell you, I was here for about 6 months and I was about to leave because I felt like nobody cared. We're like, man, we're receiving people awesomely. Everybody knows they're loved. They know they're welcome. They know what God can do. And it was just like, have we missed it that bad? Receiving is tricky, isn't it? You can think we're doing so good. But receiving is not, the quality of the receiving is not determined by the giver, it's determined by the receiver. And so we made some more appropriate changes. Because you know what? I'm not saying everything's perfect. I want to remove every single roadblock that would keep anybody from ever feeling like they're a part of Welcome Home. Confusing. Receiving to some means, and since we're in church, I'll just say church world talk for a moment. Receiving to some means the church should not put up with certain things. And so if we're not mean and loud, then we're watering down the gospel. You know, receiving, you receive and you welcome people to God. You preach it hard and hot. If they don't like it, you know where they can go. No, I know where they're already going. And they do too. And I know where I was going. But a church came and kept chasing me. And so while all the stuff is true, Communication is pretty important. And if I can't ever get to the place of having a conversation, then we're wasting this form of communication. I got to spend like 20 minutes before 9 o'clock with somebody around the table who never got to spend time with before. But it's because, you know what? We made conversations available that they felt invited into. Our communication has to invite the conversation. So the church, the gospel. Can I say this? The gospel of Jesus Christ in the days of Jesus was the most loved by Jesus, more the lost people than anybody else. The lost people chased Jesus. Lost people followed Jesus. Lost people craved Jesus more than anybody else. And it was religious pride that resisted Jesus more than anybody else. The gospel, the church even in that day, it liked giving, but receiving challenged prejudices. And prejudice isn't just a skin color. It goes on social classes. It goes sometimes from male to female. It goes from blue collar to white collar. It goes from married to divorcee. It goes from sexual orientation flavor stuff. It goes all over the place. Prejudice is anything that I'm against just because it's different. I'm against, or people particularly. And I love in Matthew, see, the church liked giving, but their prejudices were challenging in receiving. In Matthew 14, we have this place where Jesus feeds 5,000 people, over 5,000 men. Notice the key word, they always listed the men plus women and children, so they estimate about 20,000 people, because they got to raise some workers, and so in their home. And so anyway, so there's about 20,000 people through these 12 disciples, and they feed all these people and have leftovers because they brought what little they had. Jesus broke what little they had, blessed it, and it multiplied enough to feed everybody plus. A little bit later after that, Jesus gets his disciples and he sends them out into the sea in Matthew 14. And he sends them to go across the sea. Well, they didn't know he was sending them into a storm. So they go into a storm, and about 3 a.m. it gets to rocking and it goes crazy. And, they don't have like the big spotlights. I mean, there was no LED, there was no stream light, there was no, gajillion candle power stuff. It was candle power. And you can imagine how scary this would be. Waves tossing, twisting, storming, raining. And then to make matters even worse, they thought they were going to die. To make matters even worse, they thought they saw a ghost, so maybe they were dead. Jesus is like, no, it's not a ghost, neither are you. We're still alive. And then Peter's like, I'm coming out, and he comes. And, we criticize Peter for sinking, but I applaud him for walking, But then he does start singing. He's like, Jesus, help me. And Jesus is like, okay, come on up. Let's walk back to the boat. And they get in the boat, and the storm's over. Everything's calm. And they're excited. I mean, it's a great time. The next thing, they roll into Matthew 15, and Jesus gets into the next town, and he says, guys, I want to talk to y'all about something. I know you're kind of getting caught in all these different religious flavors and different little stump speeches and different denominational lines. And we just need to clarify some stuff. People say a lot of things, but at the end of the day, he said, it's not the traditions that defile you. It's what comes out of your mouth that defiles you, because what comes out of your mouth comes out of your heart. And Jesus begins to unload, and he says, what comes out of your mouth that defiles you is things like murder. It's things like slander. It's things like adultery. It's things like immorality. It's things like stealing. I thought stealing was something, but it comes from here. I guess it's in the plan. It shows it was already in the heart. But anyway, and he says this is what defiles you. Not whether you wash with organic soap or not, before your meal. This is what defiles you. And they're like, okay, we got it. We understand. It's from our heart and slander. We got it. And then later in Matthew 15, this happens. And watch, if you've ever man, the Bible, that's just for dummies, I'm about to confuse your world. Let me give you a couple of verses. This is the most upside down, backwards probably you'll ever see out of things that Jesus does. It says, then Jesus left Galilee, and he went to the region of Tyre and Sidon. Translation, he left where their hometown, where they knew everybody, where they grew up, where all their posse was, and he went to this place that had always been known as the enemy, the outcast, the Gentiles, the traitors, the people that the entire Old Testament was taking over. Okay? The Old Covenant. So he takes them over there. He's like, we're going to new land. And it says, and a Gentile woman who lived there came to him pleading. Came to him begging, saying, have mercy on me, O Lord, Son of David. For my daughter is possessed by a demon that torments her severely. It doesn't give us a lot of graphic details, but other times when we talk about people being demon possessed, they're flipping, they're flailing, they're foaming at the mouth. This is like way beyond any horror movie you ever see. They're throwing them in the fire. They're walking by water, and the kids flipping out in the water and it's drowning. It's horrid. And Jesus is taking it in. The disciples, they kick back at the table. They're eating. They're taking it in. Next verse, please. But Jesus didn't even give her a reply. Not even a word. Can you imagine this? Please! And Jesus like, looks at his disciples, looks at the lady. Do you know what happens? Like, have you ever, we're so spiritual, it's like, well, I prayed about it and God didn't tell me not to, so I just did. That's kind of what's going on here, because the disciples are like, well, Jesus won't say nothing. I guess that means we can't. And so they say, tell her to go away. Bothering us with all her begging, nagging. Get out of here. These are the disciples. What in the world? Let me just clarify something. Just because you don't see an immediate response, be careful that you don't assume that Jesus is rejecting you. It could be that he's just drawing something a little bit more out of it. The disciples, they fed thousands. The disciples, they were grateful for Jesus doing miracles for them when they were scared to death. The disciples, then this woman, number one, she is a woman, which meant she was already at the bottom of the poll. She didn't get any voting rights, y'all. She was an outcast already by a woman. Just by being a woman in that day and where she was. Number two, so if you ever think like, man, people are treated, this Christian, it's just tough and it's just arrogant, all this. If you're a woman, you should love Jesus more than anybody else, because he was constantly rising them up when everybody else wanted to put them down. So anyway, so they rise, it says go away. Don't consider a rejection. He may just be drawing something out. They fed thousands. They did miracles. They did ministry. They helped a lot of people. When they were scared to death and they were begging, help! They were really glad that hand was there. But then this woman, and not only a woman, but the Gentile woman, which if there was like a bottom of the bottom, that's the poster child in that day. Go to your dictionary, bottom of the bottom, Gentile woman. You got it. She is bothering us with all her begging. Now, Peter's begging to be saved seemed perfectly okay. But this Gentile woman, this scumbucket, this dirty, this filthy, she probably deserved whatever happened lady. If she wouldn't have been taking in all them fellas, her kid probably wouldn't be like that. Well, if she should have come here and put on her perfume first, or all this stuff wouldn't be happening. Well, that's just how it is, because she's one of those people, and they're all like that. Them Gentile women, the disciples were great givers, but sometimes they just weren't the best receivers. And these are the people that Jesus is equipping to lead his entire ministry, that the whole world may know him through them. And this is where we see them. Can we say maybe Faith-Filled is not perfection, but it is definitely progression? Because they're progressing. Can I say this? Receiving always ends where prejudice begins. And much is received where prejudices die. Several months ago, a man came up to me at the end of church, and he said, man, they've been inviting me for months. My friends been inviting me for months to come. And so I finally did. And said, and he come up to me at the end. He said, I kept asking him, like, man, why do y'all want to go to that white church? That's what he told me. And I said, yeah. And I said, what'd you find? He said, it's not a white church. I said, right, there's no white church, black church, boy church, girl church, Asian church, cowboy church. They're just the church. This is all centralized under the gospel of Jesus. And so he continued. He said, I never went to church much throughout my life. This man's in his upper 30s, 40s, I guess. He said, never much. He said, because I only went a couple times a year. And he said, anytime I went, he said, I felt like the preacher was always talking to me about how bad I was. And he said, I already knew that. I just felt like putting more of a guilt trip on me. I didn't want any more guilt than I already had. And I said, okay. He said, but it's different here. I said, what's different? He said, you act like Jesus really loves me. I said, yeah, exactly. I said, and what does that do? I said, what's the difference for you? He said, it makes me want to know more. It compels me more towards Jesus. He said, it draws, I want more. I don't want to get away. I want to come closer. Like, exactly. Exactly. As he went on, what was his problem? Prejudice had previously blocked his receiving. God had it intended for him to receive a long time ago. Prejudice had previously blocked his receiving. How do we know when prejudice still exists in our heart? Who would we feel uncomfortable if they showed up at the dinner table? Who do we tend to talk to less or avoid more? If we are truly to believe Jesus and we got to be careful to realize that Jesus is the one who qualifies. And he qualifies a we, not by our standards, by his standards. And prejudice reveals itself in all kind of crazy thoughts. And if we're not careful, we will easily hold on to a prejudice that we declare doesn't exist until we face a moment that we did not realize would make us feel uncomfortable. It's not just a skin tone. In our day and age, there's so much division in our world. How is the church to respond even where there's homosexual agenda and trying to things all the time? Are we to be just a rant in the crowd, another yell? A prejudice will show. A prejudice will always show when we have slipped past the point of acknowledging a sin to the point we would rather criticize and condemn than invite the Holy Spirit into the conversation. Got to be careful when I start acknowledging everything, but not inviting anyone. And before he signs me up today, what I'm saying is, I'm just saying what I'm saying. I'm not saying anything more than I'm saying. And I'm saying anyone can point out a wrecked life. And anyone can point out a divorce situation. Anyone can point out an addiction. And anybody can point out a loudmouth. And anyone can point out a homosexuality topic. And anybody can point out a race decision. And you know what? And say how horrible. And I would never have done, if you would have done X, it wouldn't have happened. And we can always fix everybody's problems and everybody's thing that's different than us. So we think sometimes in our head. But how awesome would it be to see much more, to hear a bunch of people going, wow, I was lost, I was confused, but man, I found Jesus, and I'm healed, and I'm delivered. Thank you for helping me. Thank you for opening my eyes. I've been so separated, I didn't even know. I thought everybody was just against me. Everywhere I've gone, everybody's pointing out my problem. I already knew my problem, but you pointed out my healer. How much better, as the old Baptist evangelists would say, our job is to catch them, his job is to clean them. We let Jesus do that. How awesome. And the reason I'm introducing this today is because though there's so many divisions in our society and we prettied them up so well. If you're looking for your mama, she's right behind you looking for you, man. There's a story right there. Illustration. I guess because the real division still shows its existence in the ways that we still have the same junior high jokes of divisions running through the junior highs and high schools that we had whenever I was still there. And it's learned generation to generation. And I believe that God has called us to break something down and to find the kingdom of heaven grow in a way more multicultural form. So on the subject of race, on the subject of sexual lifestyle, on the subject of breakdowns in families and people, how are we to respond as the Church of Jesus Christ? I believe, I may be fooled in this, but I believe anybody's been around here for a little while that probably knows me, that knows the culture that we strive to set for the church, say, oh man, Danny, it's awesome. We're doing awesome. Two-thirds Easter, there's over 500 people here. 2/3 of the people were unchurched people with no connection. There's no sign on the highway. They know where Cornerstone is. They obviously know that they're welcome and that everything's going to be accepted, and know that they're going to believe that God can do the best and that Jesus is the answer. I mean, I think it's pretty awesome. That's great, and that's great. But my heart breaks that there may still be some, like the lady who was here for 6 months and felt all alone, though she was in the crowd and in the thick of it. Are we to join and join with groups that just yell in the air about all the things? Or perhaps God has placed us here at this time and space to not just point out what's unchanged, but to be the bridge of freedom that comes in with the Holy Spirit's power and leads at the revealing of Jesus as the healer, the deliverer, the answer. And I guess one step would be to say, well, where did this whole discussion come from? And the answer is it's easy. Today, because to be like the disciples, we can be like the disciples. Sometimes we can be duped into being so close to Jesus and yet so still filled with our opinions. And our opinions will present themselves just like they did before Jesus as more wise than God. Can you imagine looking over at Jesus and saying, Jesus, we know you came from heaven to earth. We know you are God with us. You are the deity that transcends all of time. You had no beginning. You have no end. And you chose to come down here and walk as a man and embrace everything that we go through. Now, would you please tell this person that you went through all that, but not for her? It's amazing how close we can get and still sometimes miss the complete heart. Opinions are sneaky. They build roots without us realizing it. They were being used mightily. Jesus was still working through them. They were picked by Jesus. They lived daily with Jesus. And yet, even after the miracles, God's word allows us behind the closed doors to show that he was still in the process with them. Look at somebody and say, I'm in the process. We're all in the process. We're conforming. We see how Jesus would travel a long way off course just to help his disciples see who he really wanted. Matthew 15, the story continues on for a few more verses. I want to finish this out with you today. And then we're going to have communion. It says, then Jesus said to the woman, look, he says, I was sent only to help God's lost sheep, the people of Israel. It doesn't look right. But she came and she worshiped him again, saying, Lord, please help me. Jesus responded, but it isn't right to take food from the children's table and to throw it to dogs. Would you ever imagine? She replied, that's true, Lord. But even the dogs are allowed to eat the scraps from beneath the master's table. Imagine the heart going here. But it was all for a purpose. It says, dear woman, he said to her, your faith is great. Your request is granted. And your daughter is healed. This is the place that he was getting her to. But not because that's what she needed to do for her. The faith was already there. She could have took offense, but instead she just stayed. And because she realized, you know what, it's not just what God was doing for her, but in the midst, he was also doing through her. Because what he was using her to do for the disciples. Jesus knew that for them to continue his ministry of freedom and salvation for all, there are some things that need to get worked out for them. And I'm sorry, lady, but we got to use you just for about 20 seconds in this conversation. Hang with us because you're going to get deliverance. But by you getting deliverance being here today, we also traveled so these guys right here could get deliverance because there's still some more freedom to come. They need to learn that him desiring all to be saved truly meant that he was desiring all to be saved. It meant that, you know what, whosoever calls on the name of the Lord, that whosoever was a whosoever. So maybe this isn't a challenge for you today to embrace because, man, you believe Jesus can save anyone. That's great. Can I say this? It's a challenge for me today. Because I already had this wrote, I already had it written, I already had it thought, I already had been through it in my head. I'd actually already preached it a couple of times to an empty church. It was cooking. And I went to eat in the middle of this week. The restaurant's pretty full. It's a buffet. It's pretty full. And this guy gets up I'm looking at him going through the buffet, and he's about from me to Mr. Kenneth there in the black shirt. And all I could see had a black shirt and this big F word, just as big as it could take up going across. And I went, everything in me rose up with anger. And it had 3 other words on that, and it included more profanity. So, it wasn't like helping. I was like, I got mad. I was divided. I got mad at him for being an idiot. I got mad at everybody else I got mad at everybody else in the restaurant for not saying anything. I got mad at the owners for not kicking him out. I'm just sitting there, and I'm eating with 2 other people. They don't have a clue what's going on. It's all behind their back, and I'm just sitting there thinking, why won't anybody stand up? I'm still eating. But what was going on was I was wrestling too. I was like, so I could go up to him like, man, if my kids were here, I wouldn't appreciate your shirt. And that would sound good, but he don't know me from anybody, so all it would have been was a greater division, and he may have been a little more prepared for a divide than I was, So I wasn't trying to be crazy. But at the same time, and I was watching his friends at the table all smirking and laughing, because he's walking around with his shirt. And then my heart broke. And he was like, God said, there's your prejudice, Danny. So there's a lot of things that doesn't bother you. But that audacious, just blowing out there, dare anybody to say anything to me, you get offended with people like that. And you forget to see them with my eyes. That's somebody I love right there with the F-bomb all over their shirt, calling anybody out because of a wound they have. Perhaps today you're in here though, and maybe you feel like the woman. And maybe you feel like the one who's just always, if there was a profile picture for the down and the left out, and for the overseen and the rejected, that doesn't fit in, I can be around 6-9 months and still feel alone. And you wonder, does it matter? Maybe it seems like a silence that's deafening and it's hurting, and you carry things alone, and maybe you feel like the woman that come up and was begging, and there's some begging that needs to take place today. I just want to ask, you know what? I believe there's freedom today. And not for any bragging points, but you know what? For your own freedom. If you would identify with the lady that says, you know what, I know what that feels like, and I felt like the down and out, and I felt like the one that everybody was criticized and ostracized and against, and you know what, but that's not the person I want to remain. That's not the person I want to stay. It's actually, would you just stand up, wherever you are, and say, that's me. That's me. I feel like that one. I feel like I'm walking up to the table and everybody else is already sitting there. And I don't fit. But I want that man that's the center figure. I want that Jesus that they get to walk with, but I don't fit. Anybody else? Here's something I want to give you. Say, that's me. Because I believe in today, you know what, there's a standing up, and I know it may feel awkward in the moment, but to realize, you know what, one person stood up, and when you stand up, when you think you're going to be alone, you stand up and you find out you're not alone. And you find out your struggle is not something that's strange. It's something that, you know what, it's called humanity. And it's something that Jesus desired to bring freedom to. To say, don't mistake what you feel like a silence as a rejection. He's really just using something to work through you to also bring deliverance to other people. Anybody else?